Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha, the teachings of Rabbi Eliezer Malamed, Shlita. Here we are Yom Chamishi, getting ready for Shabbos Kodesh, Abaleinu Latova, Parshas Lech Lecha. We continue our study with the laws of Maariv, but please continue davening for Chalei Tzvagan Yisrael, Refuah Shalem L'chol Petzuei Yisrael, and a safe return of our hostages, and dedicating our learning Le'ili Nishmas, Seren, Daniel Shem Ben Harav Drom Shel Shem Mikum Damo. The next chapter, Tefillah Amida Shel Arvis. Yaakov Avinu Tikkun es Tefillas Arvis. Maariv, or Arvis, is instituted because of Yaakov Avinu. He's the one. And that's why Chazal and the Anshe Knesses Hagdolah, the men of the Great Assembly, they instituted that we should say the Amida, the Shmona Esrei, at night. V'kavu ezezman tfilas arvis keneged ha'alas evarim upadorim shel hakarbanos, and they established the time for davening Maariv to correspond with bringing the limbs, etc., of all the offerings. Shekol ma shelo hispiku lahalos bayom hayimalim b'meshech halayla, because the Gemara Brachos on Daf Chavav tells us that whatever they couldn't finish doing in the daytime, they would conclude at night. Ella shem ikar takanason tfilas arvis hirishus. Based on the institution of Maariv, it was only done not as an obligation, but what we call a reshus. Kolomar mitzvah lispal arvis v'lochova. It's a mitzvah to daven Maariv, but it's not an absolute obligation. Umishahaya me'unyan lasok b'mitzvah acheres, and if someone is busy with a different mitzvah, o shekvar Allah al mitas lishon, a person already went to sleep, o shemesiba acheres hayakashal lispal arvis, or from a different reason it was difficult for him to daven Maariv, lahayit tzarich lispal arvis, then we didn't require him to daven Maariv. Hatam lehevdol ben shachris and mincha l'arvis. So the difference between shachris and mincha and now Maariv, from an obligation point of view, shachris and mincha niskinu keneged karbanos hatamid shel shachar ben harbayim. Shachris corresponds to the tamid in the morning, and mincha corresponds to the tamid shel ben harbayim. Hainu keneged hazaz damam, and this was based on the workings of that carbon, including the sprinkling of the blood. Ukeshem shebelo hazaz hadam ein yotzim midei chovas hakarbon. And that was a factor, that was a part of the carbon that without which you could not be Yotzei. So if you didn't sprinkle the blood, then you wouldn't be Yotzei, you wouldn't fulfill the obligation of the carbon. So therefore, kach chayav lispalo shachris mincha. So we added the same level of chiyuv, of obligation, to shachris, corresponding to the morning tamid, and the same level of chiyuv to mincha, corresponding to the afternoon carbon. Aval arvis niskana keneged ha'alah sevarim padorim agabi ha-mizbeach. But since, as we have stated, that Maariv corresponds to the bringing over of the leftover limbs, etc., on the carbon, which perhaps couldn't be done during the daytime, but if they neglected to do so, if for whatever reason they didn't bring the Evarim, they didn't bring the limbs, nevertheless the carbon would still be valid, hence Maariv, which corresponds to that. If you didn't do Maariv, also it's not a chiyuv, it's a mitzvah. Before we get too excited of saying I don't have to daven Maariv, the custom has been that all Jews daven Maariv. Already in the time of the Rishonim, the Middle Ages, the Chachamim established it already as an obligation. But nevertheless, we do not do the repetition of the Shmona Esrei. Chazaras Hashatz was instituted to be motzit, so that those who did not know how to say Shmona Esrei, then the repetition would be able to say it for them. So since it's not on the obligatory level, therefore the repetition was not required, because we don't need to be motzei people who don't know. Nashim Peturis Mitfilas Arvis. Women are exempt from davening Maariv. And this is a part of a larger conversation about the obligation of women in Tefillah. In fact, Rav Malamed has an entire section of women in Tefillah, an entire sefer dedicated to that in this series. I highly recommend it. And even if those who hold that women are obligated in all davening, that Chacham instituted hakavana shachavas b'shachris mincha jineknasa chachova. These are referring to the obligatory tefillas of shachris and mincha. Aval tefillas arvis beturis, but everybody agrees that from Maariv women are exempt. U'minagag gvarim shekibul alatzma lispal arvis kechova ena chal aleihem. And the minhag, the custom that we have as men to daven Maariv as an obligation, did not apply to women. So here we have the institution of Maariv, and you understand the difference why there's no Chazaras Hashatz at Maariv, and perhaps a different level of obligation, but don't be fooled. Obviously, we have an obligation nowadays. We consider it an obligation to Daven Maariv, and if one forgets, one should Daven Maariv, and one should make every effort to Daven Maariv, certainly to Daven with a minyan. But this is the way it goes today. It certainly has contradistinction what happened in the time of the post-Beis HaMikdash era when Maariv was instantly instituted. But we thank you for listening. Please continue davening for Charlei Tzvagan Yisrael, for Shlem L'Chol Petzui Yisrael, safe return of our hostages. Nishmat Daniel Shemin Rav Dom Shelley Shamikam Damo. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you here next time. Have a great day.